Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you once again for keeping me company in this podcast series on quality management systems essentials. We are almost coming to the end, and we've got this today's podcast, and the next one will be the final one. After that, I will start a new podcast series on laboratory management, and I would be having interviews to answer some of the most common questions in laboratory management. So today's topic is going to be on occurrence management, and the objectives of today's podcast would be that at the end of today's podcast, you will be able to define the term occurrence. You will be able to describe the essential quality monitoring tools, differentiate preventive actions, remedial actions, and corrective actions, describe the relationship between preventive action and risk management practices, and lastly, define and describe root cause analysis. An occurrence is any error or non-conformance. An occurrence is any error or non-conformance. All deviations from what is expected within a lab and affecting lab operations should be investigated because they pose a risk of harm to patients and staff. And if root cause analysis is thorough, then corrective action will be appropriate to address the error. Let me lay down a scenario of what kind of occurrence can be there in a laboratory. The scenario is that an 83-year-old male was admitted to hospital with fever, weight loss, and cough, and was being investigated for possible tumor. An 83-year-old male was admitted to hospital with fever, weight loss, and cough, and was being investigated for possible tumor. His sputum culture was reported positive for tuberculosis, but on later review, it was found to be a false positive. Further investigation found 14 additional patients with false positive TB culture reports. How do you investigate, correct, remedy, and prevent this occurrence from recurring? So as we think about that, this 83-year-old male who's been admitted to hospital with fever, weight loss, and coughing, and being investigated for possible tumor, the sputum culture has come back as positive for TB, but on review it is found to be a false positive, and a further 14 patients with false positive TB cultures have been found. So the occurrence that I have just laid out in that scenario and its consequences include: one, delay in correct diagnosis. So, fresh diagnosis has to be done. This also led to unnecessary treatment and treatment complications. For this 83-year-old, they had started treating him for TB, which he did not have. And also the pattern of other contaminations were discovered. The problem resolution required 6 months of investigation, contacting of more than 200 patients, many requiring culture and X-ray re-examination to confirm whether they really had TB or not. Remember, there were 14 other false positives. And this occurrence led to the revision of lab procedures, which eradicated the problem. But for 6 months, the lab was under investigation. And if it is a clinical diagnostics lab, remember that you have lost your reputation, you have lost your the trust of your customers, and possible loss, if you're a research lab, possible loss of funding for other protocols. And even in the worst case scenario, the closing down of the lab. So laboratory errors cost in time, energy, money, personnel, and patient outcomes. All of these can be avoided if we are more careful, and how we are going to discuss how this can be done in the laboratory. So let's lay out what is an occurrence. An occurrence is any event that has a negative impact on an organization, which includes personnel, product, equipment, or the environment. So some common laboratory occurrences include patient ID error, lost sample, sample delayed in transit, contaminated samples, wrong test performed inconsistent with the written procedure, proficiency testing error, no action on out-of-range controls, false negative result, late reports, missing reports, complaints, laboratory accident, or a near miss. So some of the common causes of error include not having written procedures, and when these written procedures are available, then they are not followed, and training has not been done, or if done has not been completed, and if completed has not been reviewed. Another common cause of error is transcription errors. Checks are not done. Remember that all of the laboratory test results must in the first instance be reviewed by the person who performed the test, and then there has to be a second level of review by the lab manager, and a final review and release of results by the lab director. Another common cause of error is test kits not stored properly. Test kits which should be stored at -80 are stored at -20, and those are supposed to be stored at -20 are stored at room temperature, and vice versa. Or quality control and external quality assurance have not been performed to check and confirm that the systems are working properly. Another cause of error is equipment not properly maintained. Equipment is just being used without being maintained. There's no daily maintenance, there's no weekly maintenance, no monthly maintenance, or annual maintenance. And lastly, individual responsibilities are unclear. So the people working in the lab are not clear on what is their role and what they're supposed to do in certain situations. So all of those foregoing are some of the common causes of error that we see in the laboratory. These errors can occur throughout the testing process, from pre-examination phase to the examination phase in the laboratory and the post-examination phase. So we're going to look at all of this in detail, like the pre-examination phase, the patient, test selection, sample collection, and sample transport to the testing facility. And then in the examination phase, we're going to look at the laboratory analysis. And then after that, the creation of the report. After the report has been created, we look at the post-examination phase, the report transportation, and results interpretation by the end user. So among the pre-examination errors are, the patient, test selection, sample collection, and sample transport as indicated. And examples include a wrong sample being collected, or when the sample has been collected, then it has been mislabeled or totally unlabeled. Sample has been stored inappropriately before testing, sample transported inappropriately, and reagents or test kits damaged by improper storage. So these are some of the examples of the occurrences and errors in the pre-examination phase. In the examination phase, we have examples of the following types of errors. The established algorithm is not followed and people take shortcuts. Incorrect timing of test. Results reported when control results are out of range. Improper dilution and pipetting of sample or reagents. Reagents stored inappropriately or used after expiration date. And lastly, the sink test. The sink test is when the sample has not even been examined. What I've seen and come across is, for example, the lab receives foul-smelling, greenish, very loose, watery stool, and the lab technician just says Giardia lamblia without examining the sample microscopically and just throwing the sample in the sink. That is what is called a sink test. Or a female patient coming into the lab with a swollen stomach and with a request for a pregnancy test, and the lab technician assuming that the patient is pregnant simply because their stomach is big, without caring to know whether that stomach is because of a tumor or another reason, and not doing the pregnancy test and just writing pregnancy test positive. So those are examples of sync tests that I have commonly come across. In the post-examination phase, some of the errors that I have seen include transcription error in reporting. Instead of indicating 1+, they indicate 2+, or instead of indicating 2+, they indicate 3+. Instead of indicating a negative, they indicate a positive, and so on and so forth. Another error is illegible report, where somebody cannot read the report, or the report has been sent to the wrong location, or the report has not absolutely been sent. These over and above can be overcome, as I said from the very beginning of this series, by having a laboratory information management system that is integrated between the lab and the clinics or the test requester. We can overcome a lot of these errors. The consequences of laboratory error include inadequate or inappropriate patient care leading to patient death, inappropriate public health action leading to undetected communicable disease outbreaks, and wasteful of resources. Is essentially like checking a bundle of notes, currency notes, putting paraffin on it and lighting a matchstick, just burning the money like that. That are some of the consequences of the errors that we have in the laboratory. That when lawyers make mistakes, their clients go to prison. When we in the lab or in the medical field, when we make mistakes, our patients go 6 feet under, or they're burnt. We have to be aware of those kinds of consequences of occurrences. Now, in the occurrence circle, we must create awareness of the type of occurrences that we may have. And when they occur, we must have a thorough investigation, and we're going to discuss that in detail. And after investigating, take action, and then communicate to the appropriate people. I always insist that we should not use occurrences, we should not use investigations punitively, unless it is so glaring that people need to be separated from employment. Then you have to make the hard choices and fire these people. Otherwise, you also want to be fired. You may end up being fired anyway, because you should have thought about those occurrences not taking place, and making sure that you have systems in place to contain them. So how are occurrences detected? They are detected via customer satisfaction reviews. Ensure that you perform customer satisfaction routinely, and having the right form, like we discussed in the previous podcast, right questions, correct analysis, and taking action. Then also monitoring complaints. I'm not a big fan of those complaint boxes, because one, people don't put their complaints in those boxes, and if they do, sometimes it takes eons for those complaint boxes to be opened, and if they are opened, for people to analyze them. So there should be almost real-time reporting of complaints and monitoring, and also reviewing and taking care of them. The other way to detect occurrences is via internal audits and external audits, proficiency testing, and external quality assurance. These are a surefire way of detecting occurrences. The other one is when in the lab we set quality indicators, and we use these quality indicators to detect problems and then fix those problems. Also seeking opportunities for improvement and accreditation and certification. Those are other ways that we can detect occurrences. And after, like we said in the previous few moments, is after we detect these occurrences, we investigate, we fix the problem, and we provide the information to the appropriate people. So the investigation steps include information gathering. You must have a thorough way of gathering uh, information, and make sure that you have a thorough investigation. Take your time so that you perform proper root cause analysis. And root cause analysis is a structured investigation that focuses on identifying the underlying true causes of occurrences. So you just don't say that, the plane fell from the sky and 300 people died. Why did the plane fall from the sky? Well, it's because of this. And why did that happen? It's because of that. And why did that happen? It's because of that. So you must have 5 levels of asking why. When you have a vehicle and you're driving on the highway and your vehicle stops, you have an engine check, you don't have fuel. So you just don't check a container and rush to the gas station and buy fuel and come back. Why didn't you have fuel? It's because you had lent out your vehicle. It had a full tank. So why did this person that you lent your vehicle, did they ensure to refill the vehicle? No. Why did they not refuel it? Ask those 5 levels until you come to the root or to the true cause of the problem. So let's take an example in the ward that there has been a major transfusion reaction during a blood transfusion. So we want to ask ourselves the first level of why. Why did this happen? It's possibly because the wrong blood group was given. Why was the wrong blood group given? Because cross-match samples were mislabeled. Why were these cross-match samples mislabeled? Samples were not labeled at bedside where the sample was collected. Why were they not labeled at bedside? Is because 2 patients were collected, and so led to samples taken at nursing station and samples being switched. So we have asked 5 whys, and this has led us to switch samples and samples not being labeled, leading to a major transfusion reaction and possible death. After we've met this, the occurrence has happened, and we have performed the investigation. Preventive action. We must make sure that we see the potential event and plan to avoid it. That, we have to look ahead. We have to think what could happen and fix the possible ways that it could happen and make sure that it doesn't happen. So avoiding that event. The other one is via corrective actions. We should learn from the event and avoid its recurrence. And lastly, performing remedial actions ensure to address the event and its consequences. Does it require retraining? Does it require completely discarding that procedure? Does it require changing the test kits? Does it require modification? Whatever you have come up with, you make sure that you fix it. So the occurrence management process involves 1, establish a process to detect the problems. 2, log the findings and actions, whether you're logging that in your computer or logging that in hard copies. You must make sure that you log the findings and the actions that you have taken. 3, investigate the causes, analyze the information, and then the 4th step is take appropriate action. Does this appropriate action mean firing the test, the person performing the test? Fire them. Does it mean firing the whole lab? Fire them. Does it mean firing even yourself? You'll be fired. Whatever action needs to be, appropriate action needs to be taken, ensure that it is taken. And number 5, monitor for recurring of problems. Ensure that the problems do not recur, and if it recurs, perform a system analysis, root cause analysis to ask yourself why it is recurring and how to fix it and prevent further recurrence. And lastly, provide information to all needing it. So let me ask you, what about your lab? Can you list the 5 most common errors occurring in your laboratory? Why do they occur? What remedial actions did you take to address the immediate consequences? What measures could you put in place to correct the problem and prevent recurrence? How did you document the problem and action? Can you look at some of your common procedures to seek improvement and problem prevention? In summary, the lab should employ an active process for occurrence management and take a positive approach. The lab should try to detect problems early and take immediate remedial and corrective action. The lab should seek opportunities to identify potential error, thus preventing its occurrence. And lastly, the lab should keep good records of all problems, investigations, and actions taken. The key message from this podcast is that the difference between a quality managed lab and those with no system in place is that the quality laboratory detects the problem, investigates the problem honestly, and takes decisive actions, ensuring that there is no recurrence. So thank you very much. I encourage any comments, any questions, any concerns. Please visit my YouTube channel, and while there, ensure that you subscribe, you like, you leave comments, you leave any suggestions. You can also reach me through my email address, joundo664@gmail.com. Visit my YouTube channel, ensure to subscribe and like and comment. Also, you can get in touch with me through my Facebook page, Babu Joe. You can also engage with me through my LinkedIn channel, Joe Oundo, and telephone, email, and everything. Thank you so much for keeping me company, and bye for now, and see you next time. Bye-bye.